by alone inside. He's got the breakaway with the touch to the right. Goal! Everything you wanted from this debut. It's Brandon by taking a shot with the left. Goal! Isaac Friend from 25 yards out. The equalizer. Will Kidd with the touch of the goal. It's a go-ahead goal. Minneapolis City.
This is the People's Pitch Podcast, the official podcast of your Minneapolis City Soccer Club, brought to you by Summit Brewing Company.
Welcome to the People's Pitch Podcast. As always, I am your host, Nate, joined by my fellow compatriot in soccer joy, John Bisworm. John, the clock is ticking, man. We've got less than a week left of Minneapolis City action, and I think now is as good a time as any to start to hold on tight as hard as we can to the season that was.
Well, first off, hello, soccer friends. It's been a week. I've missed you. But I agree with you, Nate. We're starting to get to the dog days of Minneapolis City's year, which is the guys are going back to their normal lives. They're going back to school. The organization is doing all of the recap and, the audits of the year from a financial perspective, from an organizational perspective. There's player surveys that are going out. And then quickly, we're going to get into my favorite part of the year, which is the recruiting process. So we have a few things that we really have to start the early planning process on so we can continue to get better as we do each and every year. But that aside, Nate, I'm really excited about this show today because it's the end of the year awards show, and it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's always good to talk about this kind of stuff. We got some other stuff this week. The Bug Eaters did come to town for the return leg matchup, and it was a doozy, man. It was such a fun game, and the fireworks will continue to pop off, and there is one game left on the schedule for Minneapolis City this Saturday. We will talk a little bit about that, and like you said, it's award show time. John and I will give out our very official, unofficial player awards for the season and reminisce about some of the great moments that we've enjoyed this summer.
And maybe some of the not so great, right?
That's
the
true.
Teachable moments.
Teachable moments.
I think that we can probably move this from the unofficial category to the official category because we've done it for what now, almost 5 years?
Yeah, and literally 3. No one gives any other awards out, so it might as well be us.
Well, we didn't get any of the official awards from the league, so we might as well give out fake awards like we do with fake trophies. So.
That's right.
But they're official fake awards. How about that?
Youth was on display on Friday night at the Nelly against the best that Nebraska has to offer. City fans were treated to a glimpse of the future, and many U23 call-ups were treated to a taste of what it's like to play in front of a horde of dedicated citizens and catizens.
I think it was really cool, to be quite honest with you. Not just because you get the younger guys to have that taste of the full Nelson, the full Nelly experience.
That's so good. Did you just make that up?
I did. You literally can see the notes that I wrote, so it's not in there. They got the full Nelson treatment.
That is so good.
And I think it's great for them for that. But really, the fans that hear these names when we talk about the rosters for the U23 players and some of that next gen talent don't really get a chance to go out and see them play as much. So really, you're only getting the diehard supporters like Brian and Paul and a few others, Bryn and maybe Nate, that go to those games, or the staff. So this was the opportunity to really uncork what we have to offer in the future. And as far as the starting lineup perspective goes, I'll drop in the colleges so that some people will start to get familiar with these guys and where they go to school. So the starting lineup for the Crows was in net: Martin Sanchez from Northern Illinois, Grant Toasterud from the University of Wisconsin, Will Orser from McAllister, Ethan Anderson from St. Thomas, Connor Nelson from Bethel, Noah Sen from Liberty, Rory O'Driscoll and Eli Goldman from New Hampshire, Sam Lerman from I Forget, Niels Gilbrunson unattached, Jake Makala from St. Thomas. And then on your bench, you had Quinn Kiernett, the backup goalkeeper from Bates, Luke Lindsay from Southern Indiana, Josue Batule from North Central, Juhar Tahir from Eastern Illinois, Omar Anwar from McAllister, Kenlove Sloan from Marshalltown Community College, Ben Keller from Luther College, and then running out the bench was Esteban Badillo, who is newly signed with UW Superior. So as we said last week, the Bug Eaters really aren't messing around, man. It's truly, or it was truly a Minnesota versus Nebraska matchup, almost a Big Ten type matchup, as the Bug Eaters came with a squad made up of guys with corn in their veins and Nebraska in their past or present days. So we talked a lot about how they do something similar to us, where they deploy mostly local talent and a few imports that are going to school in the area. So very close to what we do, but interesting to note that they swung by Rochester on their way up here and picked up a familiar face in netminder AJ Jarvis from Med City to help fill out their roster, as they were thin on goalkeepers. So sharing is caring, friends.
Yeah, I think because the next day they drove down to Rochester and played another friendly against Med City. So I'm sure it was kind of like, well, you'll play one day and we got to get someone else to play another day kind of a thing. We were joking that it would have sucked to be that guy that came all the way from Nebraska and then just sat
to not play.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Just to get benched by a guy that's not even on your team.
Well, and so we were basically the cream filling, because they played Med City in Lincoln, I think the weekend before. So they got a good look at Jarvis ahead of time. So I think that either way, it's Jarvis is he stood on his head against us twice. So he's not a slouch by any means, but making his fourth appearance versus us in one season.
Yeah. Brutal. So I'll tell you what, man, like you said, these Bug Eaters, they weren't messing around. It may be an exhibition schedule for them this summer, but they take it very seriously. And they came out shooting. They were forcing Martin Sanchez into a number of early saves, but it was Minneapolis City who opened up the scoring as Rory O'Driscoll picked the ball off the feet of a Bug at midfield. He dribbled straight at the net, and he played Nils Gilbrunson on with a delicious through ball that split the center backs, and Nils was able to tuck it to Jarvis's left, and he made it 1-0 with only 11 minutes played. It was a great start for Minneapolis City.
I think the entire play started when Rory, who seemed like on the date to always be involved in any plays that were made, he created that turnover by really reading making a good read on a pass in the middle by the Bug Eaters, and was able to put the tackle in right away. And then he let the play develop rather than rushing things, I think, and connected on that nice little dink pass to Nils, who I think made a very great run through the center backs to stay on side, because he could have easily gotten too excited to hit that space. But I think that the play was the pass to the ultimate finish was predicated on the decision-making of Rory O'Driscoll. And the finish wasn't easy by any means either. I think that Nils had time to maybe try to go around the streaking Jarvis, but he chose to hit it one time, and he hit it with pace into the bottom corner. So it was a nice goal.
Yeah, it was nice. And it was, we'd seen Nils a couple of times. We saw him against Harpo's early, right? And he, traveled
Des Moines.
With Des Moines, traveled with U23. So it was nice. It was nice to see him get some bigger stage action and really show us what he's got. Because against the Harpos, he was shut down a little bit, obviously, as everyone was that early in the season against that good of a team. Again, always good for the young guys to put on a show in front of the fans. And I'll say, John, the Bug Eaters, they continued to create some good chances throughout the first half. Renato Silva was doing good work, especially, but City struck again when they were awarded a throw-in that was really close to the corner flag, and once again this goal comes off service from Rory O'Driscoll. This guy dribbles out of the corner and he puts a nice cross in to find the head of Jake Makala. I thought it was Ethan Anderson based on the number, but you're saying it was Jake Makala, so that's cool. And it was announced as Jake Makala on the stream, so you know these guys. I don't.
Right? Yeah. Neither does Dan doing the game day Twitter. So yeah, it was Jake Makala.
Another ball to Jarvis's left off of Makala's head, and it was 2-0 in the 33rd minute.
So, you mentioned that it was a throw, and I think it was Tosin Rooney who threw the ball into Sam Lerman, and then he had some really good interplay with Rory O'Driscoll, who kind of sucked the defense in, and then Makala was able to kind of slowly creep in from the far wing, unnoticed, to redirect the header softly into the corner. And I think on this goal, Jarvis could have probably done better, considering that he made most of his meals on the 18-yard line and further. But on this play, he could have come off his line, I think, and kind of create a wake of bodies and destruction to get to that ball. But instead, he sat on his line, and his defense really didn't give him any help there or much to work with. So not all his fault, but I think that he could have maybe mitigated that by coming off of his line. And you saw Makala just sneak into a pocket of space and do what he needed to do to redirect the pass into the far corner.
Yeah. Funny you're criticizing him now for not coming off his line, because that'll bite him. That'll bite him in the future. But not to be counted out. The Bugs struck back almost immediately. They were working the ball left to right in the midfield, and number 14, Arias Fung, found himself in some space, and he ripped another one of those long-range shots that the Bug Eaters had not been shy of taking leading up to this point. It was well struck, and it flew to Sanchez's right into the upper 90. It was 2-1 at 35 minutes, and these Bugs had life. And that shot, that goal was super fun.
Oh, Nate.
Yeah, the Bug Eaters, they came out attacking in the second half, man. 2-1 as we went into the locker room. As we came out, the Bug Eaters were keeping their foot on the gas. They tested the second half goalkeeper, who was Quinn Kiernett, who came on for Martin Sanchez. They tested him early, and they were looking good in possession. And in the 60th minute, a bunch of nice passing culminated in a ball that was played through to Jonathan Lopez, who really only had Kiernett to beat at that point. And he calmly just popped it over his head for the equalizer while the defense stood around and all called for offsides, and it was 2-2.
I thought there was a clear message that was set at the half for the Bug Eaters, and that was to get more connected as a unit. Mm-hmm. In the first half, it was a game of kind of long ball away team soccer. And their center midfield, which I thought had some really tidy, good players in it, were being bypassed. But I thought that once they did connect up, it looked like it took away the easy play that we saw from Eli and Rory in the middle. They kind of had a ton of space in the first half, which made it a lot harder for them to be as good as they were in the beginning, and really kind of cut the head off the snake of where the most dangerous points were coming for City.
Yeah, at the same time they were able to do that, they were able to then, because they were able to play through the middle, they added a different dimension to their game, right? So all of a sudden it was almost a new game, as both teams tried to figure out their way through the last half hour. And it looked like it was going to be 2-2 as a final score. When Minneapolis City really turned it on in the 85th. I thought the introduction of Ken Love-Sloan added some much-needed fresh legs, some speed to the game, and he was doing great work on the right side over and over and over again. First taking what was a great first touch off of a long ball to set Keller up with what was a wide-open chance that was really well saved by Jarvis. He just got his arm up and deflected that ball away. And then instead, Ken Love, next time he got the ball, he took matters into his own hands. He took advantage of Jarvis playing really high off his line, and he just dropped a dime into that far upper left corner from something like 30 yards out. It was crazy. And that would close out the game on a high note. Just a ridiculous banger to put the youth on display in the Nelly, and we were going home winners in this exhibition. It was awesome.
I really love that kid. Ken Love's just awesome. and I love that he hit his strike that went right to the citizens to celebrate. He was right in front of them, and it just was the perfect kind of end cap to a great strike. But there's not really much to say about his goal other than the fact that you need to go on the internet and watch it. But I thought that it it was a rope. It wasn't lofted. Like he struck that thing solid and got his foot through it. But some may say he was trying to play the ball into Keller, who was making a very good diagonal run and would have been onside if the ball would have come to him. But if you're in the camp of saying that was a cross and not a strike on goal, you're a complete dummy, because he hit that thing absolutely fantastic on frame. And how would you like to be Fung, who hits maybe the strike the strike of his lifetime, and then Ken Love's like, nope, I'm gonna poke it from like 40 yards out and beat Jarvis top in.
You know, it is too bad. Both goals were amazing in their own way, but of course the goal to take the victory for the home team is the one that we love the most.
Well, and it was just good soccer, right?
Yeah,
like
the whole game, I'd say, was back and forth good. It did not feel like exhibition soccer at all. It felt well matched. It felt like each team had chances. Each team was able to execute their game plan. It was fun. It was fun to watch start to finish. There was never really a dull time, John.
Yeah, absolutely.
I liked it. I haven't really had a chance to see a lot of our young talent, so this was a great opportunity. And it's one that it got me really excited for the game on Saturday against Union Dubuque, which we're going to talk about in a moment.
So speaking of that, it's time for a preview. I know you guys love our previews. Well, we have one more match of the 2019 season, and it is this Saturday, August 3rd, versus the UPSL side, Union Dubuque. The UPSL has not been kind to Union since their inception in 2017, where they've kind of seen the bottom half of the table is where they reside, albeit in a really hard Midwest Central division with some of our old friends like the Bavarians, the Croatians, and the Cedar Rapids of the PLA days. But this season, they ended up with a record of 1 win, 3 draws, 4 losses, with 14 goals for and 21 goals against in 8 games. That's a lot of goals to give up in 8 games.
Yeah.
They did, however, beat our U23 side in their first game of the season, which I think was really a feeling out type match for the Young Crows, as that was their first game of the year and it was on the road.
Yeah, they hadn't played together yet.
So there's a chance that, like last week, you may get a look at some more exciting young players that we saw take on the Bug Eaters last weekend, which I think is great. And would definitely come down and check that out. So if you're interested in some great soccer, perhaps another shot at the future, and obviously come down to the Nelly, because at 7 p.m., you should join us, because it'll also be the annual merchandise garage sale. So that's worth the trip in itself. So trying to sell off all the merch that is still hanging around at the club shop that we want to get rid of.
At a steep discount.
Yeah, at a steep discount. So tickets are $8 online and are $10 at the door.
That's awesome, man. I didn't know that. So, John, the season is all but over. And the guys are shifting gears to college or maybe even life after city. But that does not mean that we have to. We want to recap how things went in 2019 with our very unofficial People's Pitch Podcast season recap and awards. We like to start out our recap with what we call the big wins. And those can happen both on the field and off the field. Of course, for Minneapolis City, wins happen quite frequently, but the biggest wins are the ones that we want to recognize today.
So from an on-the-field perspective, there were a lot of wins that could go down on this list, and I'm sure you're going to cover maybe some logical ones in your mind. Yeah. When you think about big wins, but for me, it's the Sioux Falls Thunder away trip. That saw the Crows go 2-0 to the good on the back of a Will Kidd brace with only 14 guys. And up to that point in the season, we had gone through getting results on the road with an undefeated record against the top half of our division. So typically, this is one of those trap games where we've done just enough to get out alive, but Sioux Falls tends to play us big when we go there. But in this instance, if we dropped points, it was a chance for the Sharks circling us in the waters, and we really needed those 3 points. And it was hot as hell. And we were relatively shorthanded, seeing that we only had 14 players. It was one of those weekends where everyone had something to do in Minnesota. So it was a match in which I think we finally hit our stride, and we moved into 2 really hard games with the remaining top half of the division, and we could not slip or falter. And the guys scored early. They kept the ball. were completely dominant and did everything they needed to do to set the table for what I feel was the tipping point for back-to-back division titles for the Grove.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I think, like you said, most people, if you think about what the big on-field win this season was, it would be the first playoff game against Med City at
the Duluth game.
Or the Duluth game, the second 4-2 victory in 2 years to clinch the title, that kind of a thing. But I like where you're going with this, because this is the game last year to open the season that caused us fits. Mm-hmm. Where people couldn't go. People, we went with a weak team, or not a weak team, but a less than full strength team, and we did the same thing this year, but came out with the W. So it's a nice bellwether. It's a nice way to kind of mark the growth of the team, that we can still hit these periods of adversity and come out on top.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Now off the field. Oh, go ahead.
I'll say, so I was gonna intro the off the field, but you go ahead.
Yeah. So I think off the field, the big win this year came in the I don't know how to put this without sounding like an advertising guy, but it came in the branding space, John. Minneapolis City took huge strides this year in their off the field presence, whether it was social media, whether it was out in the world, whether it was in people's minds, through a number of really, really cool things. Branding in the world and in soccer is more than just your logo, right? And we've always had some buzz around our logo. It's more than your Twitter presence. We've always had buzz around the Twitter presence. It's more than your press releases that you're putting out. These are standard things that successful teams do. But
must-haves.
The must-haves, right? And that alone isn't going to get you the coverage, the attention to compete in a market like ours, where we've got a number of big-name sports, especially a big-name soccer team, who got hot this year, right? Mm-hmm. City got buzz this year through a number of really unorthodox channels that proved that it's not all about the ads. It's not all about what you say. It's about the goofy shit that you do and the mystique that you create around your organization. Of course, we started off with the introduction of the new kit at Palmer's, cold as hell. The poor guys are standing up there on stage, and there's a wind chill of like 40 degrees up there.
A lot of pop nips up there.
A lot of pop nips. But that new kit started it, right? We brought the guy back from Nike. What was his name?
Matt Wolf.
We brought Matt Wolf back to design another kit. Sold out immediately.
Like that day.
That stimulus, nearly unable to keep up with demand. Right? They continue to not be able to print as many as we can order, because they're just so hot. And then as you move into the season, these City Pages ads started appearing on the back of the City Pages, next to the massage ads and the the over the counter Viagra ads, or the back alley Viagra ads and stuff like that. And they weren't even that good. Like, there was no real Minneapolis City message to them beyond like some little nods that if you first saw me, you'd be like, holy shit, that's a little Minneapolis City ad. And the other thing that led into is this idea of the hotline, right? So not only are we getting buzz from people finding these ads, posting on social media, saying like, this is hilarious, but then there's this hotline, 1-888-4-CAW-CAW, right? And it's big. If you haven't called it, you should call it. It's our complaint line. The ticket misprint, right? The appearance by Comp Sadorf this week, as they're putting up their street art.
I don't think people really know the ticket misprint.
Okay, so this is something that I had to go and look back at my tickets. That like some of the passes that were given out, right? The
2019 tickets.
The 2019 tickets they're handed out. Instead of saying 2018 NPSL North Champions, they just straight up said 2019 NPSL North Champions.
Like, honest typo, right? But also
totally honest typo. But as everyone looks at it, they're like, "What a bunch of fucking dicks!" Like,
and we didn't like mean to be dicks about anything. It was just a total miscue, and we printed like thousands of these things.
So that was great. So every ticket we're giving away that we're selling a hard copy of has this misprint that calls the 2019 season championship. And then, of course, like we said, the Comp Sadorf visit. Hopefully we're going to talk to those guys in the future and get their take on the week that they spent here in Minneapolis. Of course, putting up these amazing
Murals,
these
they're
amazing
awesome.
installations of not only Minneapolis City players, but I saw Prince go up today, things like that. They got some secret stuff that's around town that people have yet to find. But just the fact that Minneapolis City, through these things that they do, that's more than a Twitter presence, that's more than a logo, that's more than interesting emails. The fact that Minneapolis City does these things is what brought them here, right? It's what piqued their interest. It's what got them interested in this idea of uncorporate soccer and how they can come out and help support it here in the city. So I think the branding is the big off-field win for 2019.
I 100% agree with you, and it just shows that our club rests on the back of creative minds, but also people who are fearless in executing on their crazy ideas. Because a lot of folks, I mean, would you think that, just throwing a name out there, do you think that Duluth would do some of this stuff? Or, you look at some of the other teams in the MPSL, would they be going out and doing that stuff? I don't
few
think
and far
so.
between.
It is few and far between. There's probably a handful of folks, I'm sure Sonny in Tulsa has done his fair share of crazy shit, with their party in the park and a few other things. But I completely agree with you there. So on to the next one. The biggest plays of the season, a lot of fantastic moments on the field for Minneapolis City. And why don't you take it away, Nate, with your top 5?
Yeah, top 5 big plays, baby. I wish we might have to find some links to put on the site page, or to put on the podcast page for this episode to point people to these directions. Number 5 has to be the Martin Brown Jr. free kick versus Aris. We were only up 1-0 against Aris in what was maybe the 35th minute. Not exactly what you expect against a team like that, especially when you're playing them at home. Mm-hmm. And Martin Brown Jr. sets up for his signature left-footed free kick from distance. And I don't think he could have put it anywhere else that the keeper couldn't have reached. It was, the guy was fully extended, going up to his right. Martin Brown puts it in the upper left corner, skims the underside of the crossbar, goes down in the net. It was like perfectly placed, professional level free kick placement. Beautiful.
It's just patented Martin Brown, right? You don't foul Minneapolis City within 25 yards of the goal when Martin Brown Jr. is on the field. It's time and time again. He's gone through, puts his foot through the ball, and teams have put 5 and 6 guys in the wall, cheated the goalkeeper over to the side, and he still finds a way to tuck it into places where the goalkeeper can't get it.
If he's on the field, what are you doing? What are you doing that? Anyway, number 4, I'm going to say Eli Goldman's game winner versus the Twin Stars. If you remember, it was set up by a nifty bit of interplay between Eli Goldman and Aiden O'Driscoll, but Eli was able to tuck in the game winner to give us what has been an elusive victory against the Twin Stars at home in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But this was also Eli's debut for Minneapolis City, which made it all that much sweeter.
Yep. No more to add there.
Yep.
Totally nailed it.
Number 3, and this is one that I wish we had better video of, one that I wish I was able to see in person, was, Max Stewart chipped him again, John. It was my favorite goal of last season when he was able to chip the keeper from something like 35 yards deep. This time he did it from midfield, maybe a little bit afterwards, off of a restart. Why don't you set the scene for us, because I think you were there.
So if you actually look at and count the hash marks, it was 65 yards.
Jeez.
So essentially, on the road against a Dakota team that can give you fits, but also can totally shit the bed, like they did against, Aris twice this year. They had just scored on us, and we were completely dominating the game in the early stages up until that point, and they scored a nice goal, and on the ensuing kickoff, Tim Wills just plays your typical possession keeping pass off of a kickoff backwards to Max, and Max didn't even skip a beat. Like, he knew before he got the ball that he was going to shoot it. and the goalkeeper was still coming back from celebrating with his team. And the best part about it for me, Nate, outside of just how fantastic of a situation it was,
Who was yelling this?
Was that the other team's fans could be heard on the stream just going crazy because they were winning 1-0.
Yeah.
And then Max just drops that right on them, and then they just started to clap. They're like, okay, you guys are better than us.
For me, what I liked about that stream was you heard someone just being like, keep, and it was like way too late that he looked up and realized he was screwed.
He was totally screwed.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was exactly what we needed, and then we ended up going on to, I think, a 4 or 5-1 victory from that point.
The number 2 big play in our top 5 is the Oliver no call in Detroit. As we said, Justin Oliver against Detroit had a really nice bit of possession where he dribbled around the defense near the touchline and looked like he was fouled in the box. No call. The ref motions for him to get up, continue play in what was fairly questionable. And like you said, a number of Detroit fans admitted that probably should have been a penalty.
Well, the reason why I think that is on our list is because that could have been a massive tipping point for a game that, in all honesty, we should have never been that close on paper. Mm-hmm. So I think that it was a big play because it could have really shifted the tide to panic mode in Detroit instead of party mode in Detroit. And that would have even further solidified how we've said, like, even on the biggest stage, even shorthanded, we belonged there. And that would have been a great way to start. And we also talked about how, opposing players tend to antagonize the Northern Guard by celebrating in front of them. If that's Justin Oliver drawing a penalty and then taking it, you better believe he's one of those people antagonizing the Northern Guard by running in front of them to celebrate. So yeah, I think that it was a big play that didn't necessarily happen, but could have.
And finally, our number 1 big play of 2019 has got to be the goal that earned us our first ever playoff victory. Nick Hutton's game winner. 72 minutes into that game against Med City at Benilde St. Margaret. Yeah,
I mean, I don't really have a whole lot to add to this one other than the importance of it. It was sending us into the regional playoff for the second year in a row. But this season by way of a victory versus a bye. So it was essentially our first ever playoff victory. So that has to be on the list. And it's just Nick Hutton doing Nick Hutton things.
Yep, just, bossing dudes off the ball, bossing around the ball, and taking amazing shots that catch the keeper off guard.
Yep, absolutely.
One of the other things we like to do, besides the big stuff, the positive things, we also like to talk about what we call teachable moments when we look at our seasons every year. And we've got 2 of them for you. What are the teachable moments for Minneapolis City this year, John?
Well, the first one's more of a positive teachable moment, and the second one is more of a constructive teachable moment. So the first one is the power of the stream. In year 1, we had some janky single camera run off of some random high school kid's hotspot. And then we moved into our second and third year where we hired professionals to do it, and we leveled up. But until this year, when it seemed like everyone in the league was having issues with how they presented their home games to fans. You can blame Mike Kuju, but we didn't necessarily have problems with Mike Kuju.
Right.
So former Minneapolis City intern, Tyler Burbish moved on to his big boy job doing video for a purple sports team across town. And we hired him and some of his buddies to come in and do the stream for us. And, I'm honest in saying that the price point was definitely positive for us, but also the quality of the streams that he and his crew provided were some of the best streams in the business, to go along with my stellar commentary with Nordo and a cast of notable characters, including yourself, Nate.
Yes.
But why I put this down as a teachable moment was because if you look at the numbers that we had for our streams, there was an average between anywhere from 800 to 2,500 people. And in some cases, even more than that, watching our matches online. And that really helps us spread our brand. I mean, we talked about branding as a strength this year. This is something that we could have added to that list if not for putting it into this category. But it helps spread that brand and gives people the ability to get introduced and to follow along with our little DIY club here in this part of the country when they can't make it to a game or they live in places like Europe.
Yeah, I mean, you forget how easy it could be for someone to get interested in Minneapolis City and then just be like, oh, well, I'll never be able to watch one of their games. I'll just remember that they have a cool logo or they have a funny Twitter feed, right?
And maybe I'll catch one in 5 years.
Yep, but instead they're able to at least log on and watch the stream week after week. One that's well produced is super important. I think we got joked on when we were calling out Duluth streaming issues this year, but because we didn't have internet last year at Osseo, but that's a different story, right? It's one.
We just didn't have the capability to do it.
It's one thing to not be able to stream. It's another thing to be able to stream and do it very, very well. And I think we're moving into that direction where next year the stream is going to be even probably best in class.
And we didn't even talk about the Palmer's Last Call, where we were interviewing players and coaches after home wins.
Yeah, all sorts of cool additions that make it feel like a actual broadcast.
Right, and we've joked with one of the hosts that we did have on for the stream, Andy Delane, in that he threw his hat in the ring to be our sideline reporter next year, which would be fantastic to have someone on the player side, a la Jamie Watson, to be able to link into during the match to give us a look at what is happening across the crow's nest by the player side.
Now, what about our second teachable moment?
So this one's a little more constructive. So there's no cure to having local players with local problems. In our case, we're unique, as many know, because we deploy only local talent, and we have a huge problem with that some people might not get. And that's that things happen in the summer when you're not at a place to just play soccer. You have summer family trips, you have weddings, you have work obligations for our guys that are 9-to-5ers. They all pop up. And they always tend to pop up when you really don't need them to happen. For example, sending 14 players to Sioux Falls in a very crucial match when the heat index is 115.
Or 13 to Detroit.
Or 13 to Detroit. So basically, our test this year was to counter that with carrying a rather large roster, including registering 3 very key U23 players. What that did was allow us to have strong talent on the field no matter what, no matter who was missing. And it was evident if you look at the different number of groups that we put out from a personnel perspective to deploy on the field this season. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think we put out the same starting 11 more than 2 games, where every other team in our conference and maybe in the NPSL can relatively easily say that their starting 11, unless there's injury, is the same every single week for the entire summer.
Sure.
So what that did was allow us to have strong talent on the field. And there's also a potential cost to that. And that's that sometimes guys don't get to play a lot when everyone's available, and that can cause a divide in that brotherhood mentality. And in our first instance of carrying a larger roster, it worked. And it was totally needed. It helped us win a title, a back-to-back title. But we won a lot. So that sometimes keeps that positivity going. So we'll have to see if that works in a year where we maybe don't win a lot, Nate.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, in the year where we don't win a lot, is it a matter of do the calls start coming in for like, to bring up the talent, right? Get rid of the guys that aren't performing, bring up some new guys, and at least see, like happens in all major league sports, right? To move to the youth movement if the normal starters can't produce. I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily see that happening. I think we've said it before. We said it at the beginning of the season as we're kind of going through who you've recruited for the U23s, who you recruited to be starters on this NPSL squad, that like, the talent keeps getting better and better because more and more high quality players want to join Minneapolis City, want to be a part of what you've got going on here. So I think that would be far in the future when the soccer the soccer world has deteriorated to an awful point here in Minnesota.
Good way to put it.
Yep. Now let's get on to the awards, man. Enough of the recap, enough of the reminiscing. I think it's important to recognize some of the people and the players that really have made this season quite special. And we'll start with a new award that we're doing this year, Organizational Member of the Year.
So coming off of an undefeated season, Coach Adam Pribble stepped down from coaching the team to take a different role in the organization. So the next man up was the introduction of Coach Matt Van Benscoten. Only off of one true year of being part of the club as our U23 coach, he stepped into a role that is very demanding and honestly hardly rewarding unless you do win a championship. And he did a fantastic job of managing the player pool with that larger group of players, a very busy support staff from a coaching perspective that he had to manage. And then you look at his record, only dropping points in 2 games and winning the conference in his first season in charge, and also winning the club's first playoff game against Med City. And then he goes and puts up a huge fight in a hostile environment against all odds with a roster of 13 in Detroit. So for me, that's a perfect recipe for a top spot in the organization, considering it was his first year fully in charge of our top team.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that when you wonder how Matt is able to would be able to step up this year,
or sleep at night.
Yeah, I mean, he had so much to take over for, right? You're basically looking at taking over for an undefeated team. Is he going to feel pressure to continue that undefeated stretch? Is he going to feel overwhelmed when it comes to keeping that up, and what happens if we don't, which we didn't, and how does he rally the team around that? It's good that he was close to the team for as many years as he was, or for the year that he was beforehand, but really it was when the rubber hit the road that he proved his mettle. So hats off to Coach Matt. Next up, another new award, one that we like to do, recognizing the people in the stands. We'll call this Citizen of the Year.
Much like our coaching staff, a torch was passed from the leadership of our largest group of supporters, from founder David Baker to Nate Zell, or Zeal. Sorry, Nate. I got your first name right. He did very well in my book in leading the off-the-field execution of the Brotherhood. And there were lots of new things that were introduced that elevated the group this year in his first year in charge. Under his watchful eyes, there was the game day potluck tailgate at the park across the way. And the addition of my favorite thing, more player-specific chants that we talked about when we had him on the podcast. There were drums. There was a lot of buzz in the section. And each game, it looked like there were more and more people in that supporters group for every match. And that's great to see. And I'm really excited to see what they perhaps take away from maybe what we saw with the Northern Guard when we went up to Detroit, to continue to make us, in my mind, by far the leader from a supporter perspective in our division.
Yeah, when we talked to Nate at the beginning of the season, when he took over, one of the things that he talked about was making the Citizens, making fandom in Minneapolis City more accessible, and I think he did just that. Another guy I'd like to give honorable mention to for doing that is Brian Schreier. Brian, of course, did a lot of traveling with the team thanks to his devotion to it, but also thanks to his wife, Sarah, who ran the merch and is one of the other operations staff members here in Minneapolis City. So I would say when it comes to making the Citizens accessible, Brian is always there, always a smiling face, always happy to talk to people, and happy. I'm glad he's a normal guy. He's the kind of guy that when you come to the game and you see him cheer and wave the flag and lead the chants, you're like, oh, that's something I could do or something I can get involved with. It's not like, it doesn't feel super militaristic like the Northern Guard would, or something like that, where it's like, whoa. I'm not ready to wear like bandanas on my face and look like I'm about to riot.
Well, I was going to say that he does it with meaning, when we get scored on and he's trying to lead some chance to get the guys back into it. He really means it.
Yeah.
It's not like some scripted thing that he's like, all right, in the 42nd minute, we're going to say this, you know what I mean? It's like, so yeah, I 100% agree with you that Brian is also an integral part into the supporter culture for Minneapolis City.
So thanks. Hats off to Nate. Great work, Brian. On to the player awards, John. We'll start with Young Player of the Year. We got a lot of youth but there is only one Young Player of the Year.
This one, I think we both collectively agree, hands down, it has to go to Eli Goldman. When a rash of injuries hit our central midfield at the MPS level, there was only one place for us to really go to find replacements, and that was to our U23 squad. And we had quite a few options there. You had Rory O'Driscoll, you had Jake Swellen, you had some really good talent there, but he was introduced in his job interview match versus the Des Moines Wanderers when we put together the kind of the hybrid side of both teams, and he went in and set up the game tying goal just before he banged in the game winner. And from that point on, he was a consistent danger, scoring 5 goals in 6 matches, including in our first ever playoff game. He scored the first goal. So on top of his scoring, he also had the ability to pass the ball, and he was everywhere when he got the ball. And definitely, it's really hard to say that there was a better Crow that was box to box in our game versus Detroit City in that playoff game in the regional semifinal. And I'm really excited to see what he does in his first full season of college in New Hampshire. And I cross my fingers, Nate, that we get to bring a talent like Eli back for a full season and see what he can do.
Isn't always the case. You find a good one, and
you're like, oh,
they're young, and it's like, well,
see you in the PDL.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The USL comes calling, and we can't compete with that.
So I agree wholeheartedly. I think nothing to add here beyond time to move on to most improved player of the year. And this is not a knock against this player. Not that this player was bad by any means last year, but there is marked improvement in his play.
Yes, it's really hard to pinpoint a person for this award, Nate, because we had just a lot of solid soccer players and some guys we only got to see a small sample size of this season. You could talk about small sample sizes. We didn't get a chance to see a full season of Samuel. We didn't get to see a full season of Luke Hackinson. But when you get to the nuts and bolts of players that elevate their game from previous year to the current year, for me, it was Aiden O'Driscoll. He didn't feature in many matches because of some planned off-season travel once he got done with his senior year. And he got in late because the school year didn't end at a normal time. But what he did when he was on the field was just nothing short of fantastic. And if you were ever at training, he was possibly the best players that we had in training when he was there. He was voted his all-conference player, offensive player of the year at Luther College, as well as being a Division III All-American in his last year. But for the Crows, when he stepped in, when he was available, he really helped solidify the midfield for us and filled it with his ability to get forward from deeper spots. And he set up a handful of goals that were very important. And like you mentioned, none in the kind of the big plays, none more was more important at that given point in time in the season than his setup and his assist to Eli Goldman to beat the Twin Stars at home. So again, another player that I cross my fingers and hope to get him back for a full season next year. Yeah.
So again, not a knock on Aiden at all. I think the bonus this year with Aiden is where last year he was a young guy that when you called him up, it was you kind of crossed your fingers and hope that he could produce and help the team out. This year he is a like for like replacement for any midfielder when he was inserted into the rotation.
Absolutely.
Next up, we have breakout player of the year. This is the player that may have been off the radar last year, not with the team last year, or in this case had been floating around the NPSL for a couple of years, but really found a home and found some efficacy with Minneapolis City.
A lot of players on the list for potential breakout player have a consistent theme, and that's that they turned things up this year from last year. A lot like the most improved, but with a little bit of a different spin. There was only one player in particular that we've seen many times, but he was usually across the pitch from the Crows, and that's Zuhair Al-Abbasi, playing in his first MPSL season with Dakota Fusion in our first year, and then last year playing with VSLT, but then this season joining us. And I felt that he was always a great player, but there was something that needed to be unlocked for him to show or to truly showcase his optimal output. And that was actually just being coached. He himself is always a student of the game, but he was finally given the chance to get quality instruction. And that took away the on the fly thinking for him when he's in a match, and it showed. He was also moved from his typical midfield spot to where it's more of his comfort zone to an attacking fullback role. He was consistently a starter for us. He was, he has the speed needed in this division to track down a handful of pacey wingers. His ability to get forward and play in a deadly cross was something that was definitely needed. And I look for him, to take a giant leap with this group next year into a player that can maybe consistently find the back of the net from that fullback position.
How amazing would that be? Like
I'd like it. Yeah.
Like you said, he told you, I think, that he never actually, he just kind of went out there and did his thing. Right? He was never the kind of guy that a coach paid attention to or had to pay attention to because he was skilled enough to be nearly untouchable on some of those other teams. But once he got to Minneapolis City, he was really able to step up his game. Awesome to have you here on the team. Next up, newcomer of the year, a little different than young player of the year, but also a little similar. I think I would say this guy is not only a newcomer to the Minneapolis City scene, newcomer to, adult soccer in general, as quite a young guy. I had the privilege of sitting next to him way back in our friendly against Harpo's, and I thought, is this kid really going to be able to come on and compete with these grown men? And compete he did. I think what I'm looking for next. Well, why don't you go ahead and talk about him, and then we'll say like where I would like to see him evolve in the future should he come back.
So there are quite a few players that could take this honor. We mentioned a few of them in Eli or maybe even Zuhir or another player we're going to get to in a second, but we're going to go with 17-year-old forward Kevin Andrews. The electric youngster came to us looking for a place to further his soccer education before he ultimately takes his next step forward in his journey. A consistent wow factor in training, and that translated to the moments that he had on the field. He was always fearless as a true boy amongst men when he was inserted into matches. And I mean, to the letter of the word, totally true. And the fruits of his labor have actually sent him on trial in Portugal for a second division side called Sporting Uiares, where he's currently on an extended trial before he awaits the club's decision on maybe signing him permanently for the future. So that's another indication of how good this guy really is, and that we were the springboard for him in what he needed, and he helped us in what we needed, and that was getting our back-to-back title. So we wish Kevin the best if he can latch on in a country like Portugal. I absolutely believe in him, and he can do that. But if he does not, we will absolutely give him a home for next summer so that he can set himself up for maybe even another opportunity where he can latch on in the future.
So when Kevin first started playing, like you said, this is another kid that hadn't really been coached much in the past, just kind of went out and did his thing. So the learning curve was steep for him as a 17-year-old. But
we're going from youth soccer to
yes,
playing against men.
But he ascended it well, I would say. And by the time he's getting put in as a substitute against Med City in our playoff game, and he's being counted on to keep the ball in possession, kill time, look dangerous, beat guys one-on-one, it looked effortless on it. The only thing I would like to see, should he come back, I'm excited to see how he can up his finishing game, because he didn't really score a goal, didn't really make himself too dangerous on that side, but in possession, ball movement up and down the field, the kid was truly amazing to watch.
Yep.
Now finally on to offensive MVP, John, or I shouldn't say finally, next on to offensive MVP, of course, the offensive player that made the biggest difference for Minneapolis City this year.
We had such a spread out season this year when it comes to offensive production, and I could say it was maybe Eli or Will Kidd. Eli scoring in almost every game that he played in, coming on late. But this year, in my mind, the person who put danger as my most valuable attacker is Nick Hutton, who can strike can strike against the defense in any number of different ways. But at this level, his danger factor is no one has it. the software salesman who didn't even play college soccer, when called on this year, produced 4 goals and an assist in 8 games this summer, often on the injury table or playing injured, has pure drive and athleticism that you can't teach. And he mixes that well with the right amount of skill and the willingness to use both feet when either one is the right option, where some players kind of shy away from that. And I think that just adds to his dynamicism. My favorite performance of his, though, on the season was how much fun he was having in our playoff game in Detroit, going toe-to-toe with some of the league's best and causing them fits. It just made me really happy to see that and to have a guy like him on our roster.
Yeah, I mean, there was a moment when, I don't know, halfway through the season, once Nick finally started coming on regularly, where you just would notice that this is a guy that can get the ball, that can find the ball, that can be, whether he goes up to get it, whether he goes after the ball on the feet of other players. This is a guy that's got a nose for the ball, and that when he gets it, you never know what's going to happen. And that's a positive thing. Not a you never know, because it's going to get crazy and weird. Anyway, always exciting to watch Nick Hutton. Super bummed that he did spend so much time on the trainer's table this summer, but hopefully next summer he'll come back stronger, as we tend to do. I want to give an honorable mention, though, John, to Justin Oliver as our offensive MVP, only because he did also have 4 goals on the season, and because 2 of those were to bury Duluth in out of the number 1 spot. Right? He did it for the second year in a row, where once Justin, and he had a rough start. I remember at the beginning of the season, I said, like, if this guy can produce like he did at the end of 2018 for the entirety of 2019, Minneapolis City is in good shape offensively, and he didn't. He came out and sputtered. He did a lot. He was thinking too hard, dribbling too much, right? Until he finally broke through. And once he started scoring, it kept coming, and he just had Duluth's number. And it was a performance that cemented the season for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, we were down on Justin, and he knows it. He wasn't really producing, and I think he was trying too hard. But the game that unlocked it for him was the Duluth home game that we lost. And he scored a goal against them doing Justin Oliver things. And that was what unlocked it for him. And excuse me, we really needed to be carried on his back for a couple games throughout the season to close things out, and none more so than the Duluth game that you mentioned and the Detroit game that we didn't prevail in, but one that he definitely played well in as well. So a definite good 1B for this award.
Yeah. You know what all turned around for him was when he got smoked in the nuts super hard by that ball in training when we were recording the podcast.
That was brutal.
I thought he was done. I thought he was going to the hospital.
Yeah.
I thought his shit was going to be all over the place.
There will never be another a group of little Olivers running around.
I thought his junk got just blasted to a ball.
Oh, and then the thing is like I felt so bad for the guy because there's nothing you can do for him.
No, so you just sit there and laugh.
Right, because you laugh out of like sympathy.
Yeah. Next is the defensive MVP. Minneapolis City's defense not as dominant as last year, but still getting the job done against the NPSL North, and even to a lesser extent against Detroit, where we only gave up 2 goals to one of the top scoring offenses. So, who do you have as defensive MVP, John?
So, when you talk about one person on this defense that stood out, you can probably point out a single field player that logged a ton of minutes. But for me, it was the work of our collective goalkeeper room of Matt Elder, Troy Lewegi, and Jeremy Clark. And what they did in keeping us in games to win another title was really impressive. And we've talked about it at length on how there can only be one of them that plays at a time. And they're all competitive guys that want to be that number one. So you can get a little down if you're not that guy. But this year, with the wealth that was spread out in the league, you had Matt Elder starting 9 games, Troy starting 3, Jeremy starting 1. They all did their jobs from a goalkeeping perspective, and there was never a drop in performance when we went from one to the next to the next. They all made saves. They all kept our team in games so that our offense could take over, or our midfield could take over.
Yep.
So, you look what Matt did for us in a game like the Med City away when we needed that point, and he made countless saves in that game. And the work that Troy put in versus two of the best strikers in Detroit, like you mentioned. And then Jeremy travels to Sioux Falls, and even though he had a busy summer and could only feature in one match, his availability for that match, he gets a shutout, and we really could likely not have done what we did when everyone leveled up to beat us this year without their collective fantastic play, only giving up 11 goals in 12 regular season matches.
Yeah, just take a quick look at those stats, John. Matt Elder gave up 11 goals over 9 games, really 8.5 games. He started a game and then was replaced. Troy giving up 3 goals over 4 games, including the 2 at Detroit City, and that includes a substitute appearance, relieving Matt Elder up in Dakota. They split that game. And then Jeremy Clark, 1 goal in 2 games if you count the game against Harpo's. So in all competitions, not bad out of the goalkeepers, out of the keeper's corner, as you said. I'm going to give honorable mention in defensive MVP to someone, and I don't know if you agree or not, because it's kind of a weird perspective on it, but I'm going to give it to Abdallah Ba as a 1B, and that's because this is a guy that with Minneapolis City has kind of been able to play in a number of different positions. And when he is on the field as a defender, he is generally locked down. He's got an engine to him. He never gives up, and you don't really have to worry about his corner. But when you put him on the other side of the ball and you put him up at the wing, this is a guy that contributes to goals, that scores goals, that assists goals, that gives his opposing defenders fits. And I think that kind of versatility in a right back or a left back, wherever you decide to slot him in, is exactly what you need out of that position, moving and being threatening on both sides of the field. Like you said, it's what you're hoping Zahir Alabasi develops into next year. So I want to give Abdallah Ba the honorable mention to defensive MVP.
I mean, I've said it before. He is probably one of the best left backs I've been able to be involved with. And I know it's not his preferred position, but he's so damn good at defending. And you don't think of it when you look at him. He's skinny, he doesn't necessarily look like your typical left back, but he just gets the job done. And then you add into what he can do when he gets forward. It's fantastic. And, I think that it's almost a crime that he didn't have the opportunity to play at a higher level and kind of settled in at the MPSL level and having a day job. But I will make no excuses when I say that he's the best left back I've seen.
Wow. That's strong praise.
Well, I mean, hey, honorable mention.
And finally, let's talk about team MVP, John. This is the one that we both agree on and that we've talked about a number of times this season.
Yeah, this one's a no-doubter. Our collective MVP of the 2019 season is defender Jonah Garcia, picked up off the open trial process. And in theory, on paper, when the season began, some would argue he was likely the 4th or 5th choice at center back, with names like Ben Hart, Norville, Kent, and the return of Kevin Huff. He stepped in due to basically just hard work and consistent participation in training. And then when the injury bug hit, he played almost every minute of every game this summer and performed admirably. He scored the game winner in his first ever start versus Dakota at home. He locked down some very talented strikers in our division. He played the ball well out of the back with multiple chances that he created off of calculated long balls, and was quickly kind of moved into becoming a vocal leader of this team in his first year. Totally robbed by politics, I think, that were the end of the year awards in our conference, in our region. I know he's not a glory chaser like that, but I really do believe he deserved recognition for what he did on a very stingy defense that won a conference championship, giving up only 11 goals all season, and never gave up more than 2 goals in a given match, which is really impressive. And so I'm really glad we made the decision to select Jonah. He's a great guy off the field, a really good addition on the field for Minneapolis City.
Let's go through those stats, John. In 1,074 plus minutes played this season over 11 regular season games and 2 playoff games. That's insane. I think there was one he didn't go on the trip to Dakota, and he played 84 minutes in another game. So 1,074 plus extra time is truly impressive, especially for like you said, a league where consistency has been an issue. Over those 13 games, 0.83 goals per game average when he was on the field. And like I said, in a league where consistency is rare, Jonah was really a rock for the team all season, quietly contributing to this championship team.
And that is it, folks. The official,
Congrats.
Unofficial awards. Congratulations to all of the winners. You all deserved it. And I mean, in all honesty, our entire roster, including our U23 roster, are all award winners in my heart, Nate.
Yeah, that's true.
But once again, thank you to our sponsor, Summit Brewing Company, for being with us all season. You've been a great sponsor. So remember, go on down to your local liquor store, bar, restaurant, and support them as much as they have supported us. If giving back to the community means a lot to you, maybe it's time to give to the club that loves to give back. Minneapolis City is a 501c3 that provides a safe, reliable, and fun environment for young people to play the beautiful game. It's almost tax time. Never.
Already? Is that in there?
It's never time for you to start thinking about taxes. So when you're doing that, consider a tax-deductible donation to a truly city-focused organization. It's never a bad time to become a member of Minneapolis City. For only $40 until the price goes up again, you can support a club and get some really cool stuff in return. You get an exclusive membership scarf, a membership card that gets you 10% off at the club shop, and deals on Summit at our official game day bar, Palmer's. Plus, you get to vote in important club matters, including selecting the membership board, choosing the scarf and kit designs. So visit mplscitysc.com and make it happen. What are you waiting for?
Nothing.
Send us mail. It's easy. Hit us up on Twitter at The People's Pitch or through email at mcscpodcast@gmail.com. All questions, comments, and concerns are welcome. And finally, as always, you can hit up the club at MPLS City SC. That is all for this week, folks. I am John. That was Nate. And let's do this one more time on Saturday. We want to see all of you out there at the Nelly to see off the 2019 NPSL North Conference Championship Minneapolis City Crows. And you got hoofed.
Poster burning maple weeds, cradle major keys. Thinking back, I've been major since the minor league. So supreme, too much sauce off my olive NMDs. I could staple steez, bend the goat so I get the cheese. Never fall, rake them leaves and make sure every moment gets seized and everything I see.